Ambassador Zekthara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she reviewed the holographic display floating before her. The data streams showed a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in what the Galactic databases labeled as Sector 7749 Delta. Earth. Home to the humans. Such a primitive species, she muttered, her chitinous fingers clicking against the crystalline control panel. They've barely managed to crawl beyond their own moon. Around the oval conference chamber of the Galactic Commerce Syndicate's flagship, representatives from 12 major civilizations sat in their environmental pods, each being represented thousands of worlds and trillions of citizens. Together, they controlled the flow of resources, technology, and trade across half the galaxy. High Commander Vortanis, a towering reptilian with scales that shimmered like liquid metal, leaned forward in his pod. The reports from our scouts are confirmed. This Earth sits directly on the most valuable hyperspace junction discovered in the last millennium. Indeed, agreed Minister Hallax, her gaseous form swirling within her containment field. Every major trade route, from the outer rim to the core worlds, must pass through their system. Without access to that junction, cargo ships will need to add 14 days to their journeys. Zekthara pulled up another display. Our economic analysts calculate that controlling this junction would increase syndicate profits by 37% annually. The savings in fuel alone would be worth more than the GDP of 100 lesser civilizations. And these humans have no idea what they're sitting on, chuckled Director Quintal, his massive bulk filling nearly half his pod. Their most advanced ships can barely reach their neighboring planets. They think space travel requires chemical rockets and metal ships. The other delegates shared what passed for laughter among their various species. The idea that such a backward race could pose any challenge to their combined might was absurd. What do we know about their society? Asked Commander Vortanis. Zekthara's display shifted to show images of Earth's cities, its people, their technology, fragmented, divided into nearly 200 separate political entities. They still fight wars with projectile weapons and explosive devices. Their energy production relies heavily on burning fossil fuels. Most remarkable of all, they've achieved spaceflight without developing unified planetary governance. Typical pre-FTL chaos, Minister Hallax observed. They lack the wisdom that comes with age and technological advancement. My species went through a similar phase 12,000 years ago. Their military capabilities? Vortanis inquired, though his tone suggested he expected the answer to be irrelevant. Laughably primitive, Zekthara replied. Their most powerful weapons are crude nuclear devices. They've never developed energy shields, plasma weapons, or gravitic manipulation. Their fastest ships move at a fraction of light speed using chemical propulsion. A single syndicate destroyer could level their entire planet. Director Quintal's massive head bobbed in what might have been a nod. Then the solution is obvious. We approach them with an offer they cannot refuse: access to limited technology and protection from hostile alien forces, in exchange for exclusive rights to establish bases in their system. The classic protection racket, agreed Minister Hallax. We've used it successfully on 47 other pre-FTL civilizations. They always accept. Zekthara's eyes focused on the tactical display. Our psychology experts have analyzed their cultural patterns. Humans display typical pre-space anxiety about alien contact. They will be awed by our superior technology and grateful for our protection. Their divided nature means we can easily play their factions against each other if any resist. How do we begin? Asked Commander Vortanis. Standard first contact protocol, Zekthara replied. We arrive with an impressive but not overwhelming show of force. Perhaps 50 ships, enough to demonstrate our superiority but not so many as to trigger panic. We broadcast universal translator messages to their leaders, offer advanced technology, and present the protection agreement. And if they refuse? Zekthara's mandibles clicked in what her species considered a smile. Then, We demonstrate what hostile alien forces might do to an unprotected world. A few destroyed cities, some atmospheric disruption, maybe eliminate one of their smaller nations. They'll sign quickly enough after that. The other delegates murmured approval. It was a proven strategy, refined over millennia of syndicate expansion. First the offer, then the threat. Finally, the inevitable capitulation. Every species followed the same predictable pattern when faced with overwhelming technological superiority. There is one small complication, Zekthara added, pulling up another display. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual energy signatures from their planet. Nothing that suggests advanced weaponry. But their power generation seems more sophisticated than our initial estimates indicated. Director Quintal waved a dismissive tentacle. Probably just inefficient fusion reactors or some crude matter-antimatter experiments. Nothing that could threaten proper military vessels. Agreed, said Commander Vortinus. Besides, even if they possessed energy weapons, they lack the infrastructure for space-based warfare. No orbital platforms, no fleet formations, no defensive networks. Minister Hollex's gaseous form pulsed thoughtfully. What timeline are we considering? Our fleet can be in position within 6 standard weeks. Zekthara replied. The advanced diplomatic vessel should arrive 3 days prior to establish communication and deliver the initial offer. If they accept immediately, we can begin construction of our facilities within a month. If they require persuasion, add another 2 weeks for the demonstration and negotiation phases. Excellent, said Director Quintal. The board of directors will be pleased with such efficiency. The profits from this acquisition will fund expansion into the Magellanic sectors. Not. As the meeting continued, none of the delegates noticed the subtle quantum fluctuations their sensors registered as background noise. They had no way of knowing that these fluctuations were actually encrypted data streams, carrying every word of their conversation across space at faster-than-light speeds through principles of physics their science hadn't yet discovered. On Earth, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the alien conference through quantum-entangled observation networks that her team had spent the last decade perfecting. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces that would have seemed impossible to most of her own species. Well, that's insulting, she muttered to herself. Chemical rockets and metal ships, indeed. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored data streams from across the solar system. Hidden observation posts on Mars, Europa, and Titan tracked every alien ship movement. Quantum sensors embedded in seemingly ordinary asteroids mapped hyperspace currents that the aliens thought were their private highways. Dr. Chen touched her communication implant. Director Hayes, we need to accelerate Project Homecoming. The syndicate is moving faster than our projections indicated. The response came instantly, transmitted through quantum channels that made the aliens' fastest communications look like smoke signals. How long do we have? Sarah, 6 weeks until their fleet arrives. 3 days until first contact. That's cutting it close. Are the orbital platforms ready? Dr. Chen smiled as she looked at displays showing construction progress throughout the solar system. Massive structures taking shape in the asteroid belt, their exotic matter hulls invisible to conventional sensors. The first wave will be operational in 5 weeks. Not our full defensive network, but enough to send a message. And the fleet? Admiral Morrison reports the Terran Defense Forces are eager to field test their new toys, especially the deep strike capabilities. A pause. Sarah, you're certain about the alien psychology profiles? They really think we're that primitive? Dr. Chen laughed. They think we're using chemical rockets, Director. Meanwhile, our fastest scouts can cross the galaxy in 3 days using folded space drives. They assume we're a fractured, primitive species that will be grateful for their protection. Then they're in for quite a surprise. Implement Protocol 7. Let's show these galactic powers what happens when you underestimate humanity. As Dr. Chen began issuing orders, The true scope of human space capabilities began to reveal itself. What the aliens had dismissed as impossible was merely hidden. Humanity had learned long ago that the best defense was to appear defenseless while preparing overwhelming force. The Syndicate fleet was already in motion, confident in their superiority and certain of easy victory. They had no idea they were flying into a trap that would reshape the balance of power across the entire galaxy. In the depths of space, ancient warning beacons that the aliens thought were just cosmic background radiation began transmitting a simple message in 1,000 languages. Humanity remembers. Humanity prepares. Humanity endures. The greatest military miscalculation in galactic history was about to begin. 3 weeks later, the Syndicate diplomatic vessel Times, peaceful negotiator Times, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Captain Reldan, a veteran of 47 successful annexation missions, stood on his bridge, reviewing final preparations. "All systems nominal, Captain," reported his tactical officer. "No signs of defensive installations or military vessels. The primitives appear completely unaware of our arrival." Reldan's scaled lips curved in satisfaction. "As expected, begin the standard approach. Maintain communications silence until we reach optimal intimidation distance." The sleek vessel, larger than most human cities, glided silently through the outer solar system. Its sensors swept the space around them, cataloging the handful of primitive probes and satellites that humanity had launched over the decades. Everything matched their intelligence reports perfectly. "Captain," called the sensor operator, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the third planet." Define unusual. Multiple high-energy sources. Much stronger than expected for a pre-FTL civilization. Could be fusion plants or early antimatter research. Reldan waved a dismissive hand. "Probably just inefficient power generation. These primitives waste enormous amounts of energy. Continue approach." As the Times peaceful negotiator Times passed Jupiter, Captain Reldan ordered communications activated. The ship's powerful transmitters sent signals toward Earth in dozens of frequencies, carrying the universal mathematical constants that served as the galactic standard for first contact. The response came within minutes, much faster than expected for such a primitive species. "Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. State your purpose and intentions." Reldan smiled. They even spoke in perfect galactic standard. Probably using some crude translation software they'd reverse-engineered from intercepted transmissions. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Captain Reldan of the Galactic Commerce Syndicate vessel Times Peaceful Negotiator *. We come bearing gifts of knowledge and technology, offering your species membership in the greater galactic community." There was a pause. Then, "Captain Reldan, we're aware of your organization's standard operating procedures. Are you here to offer us protection from hostile alien forces in exchange for basing rights in our system?" The straightforward response caught Reldan off guard. Most primitive species were either terrified or awed during first contact. These humans sounded almost bored. "Your directness is refreshing," Reldan replied carefully. "Indeed. The galaxy can be dangerous for unprotected civilizations. The Syndicate offers advanced technology and security guarantees to species wise enough to accept our partnership." "I see. And what exactly are we being protected from?" Reldan activated his ship's external displays, showing holographic images of massive warships and devastating weapons. Pirates, slavers, world burners, and conquest fleets roam the spaceways. Without proper defenses and allies, isolated worlds are vulnerable to terrible fates. "Fascinating. Captain, would you mind holding position while we confer with our leadership?" "Of course. However, I should mention that our main fleet will arrive shortly for formal ceremonies. I trust this won't cause alarm among your population." Another pause. "Not at all, Captain. We'll be ready for them." The transmission ended, leaving Reldan feeling oddly unsettled. Something about the human responses felt wrong, but he couldn't identify what. "Captain," his tactical officer called urgently. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy spikes. throughout the system. From where? Everywhere, sir. The asteroid belt, the outer planets, even what appeared to be empty space. It's as if entire installations are suddenly powering up. Before Reldan could respond, space around the Time's peaceful negotiator times suddenly filled with ships. Not the crude metal vessels they expected, but sleek craft that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Dozens of them, appearing from nowhere with no hyperspace signatures or engine emissions. "Battle stations!" Reldan shouted, but even as his crew scrambled to respond, he realized the futility. The mysterious vessels had positioned themselves with perfect tactical precision, covering every possible escape vector. "Captain Reldan," came the calm human voice. "Please lower your shields and prepare to receive a diplomatic party." "Impossible," Reldan whispered. "Where did these ships come from? How did they achieve such positioning without detection?" His sensor operator looked up with fear in his multiple eyes. "Captain, I'm reading power signatures from these vessels that exceed our most advanced dreadnoughts. And, sir, there are more ships appearing throughout the system. Hundreds of them. On the main display, Earth grew larger as they were guided inexorably toward the blue planet. But what caught Reldan's attention were the structures that shouldn't exist. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the world like metallic moons. Space elevators reached into the void like impossible towers. Ships moved between installations with casual ease, their technology clearly decades ahead of anything in the Syndicate fleet. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Forces," came a new voice. "Captain Reldan, you'll be interested to know that we've been monitoring your organization's activities for quite some time. Your approach to diplomacy is rather predictable." A hologram materialized on Reldan's bridge, showing a human in a uniform that somehow managed to look both ceremonial and practical. The Admiral's expression was pleasant, but his eyes held the coldness of deep space. "I don't understand," Reldan stammered. "Your species is pre-FTL. Your technology is primitive. How is this possible?" "Why?" Admiral Morrison smiled. "That's what we wanted you to think. You see, Captain, humanity learned a very important lesson about galactic politics long before you discovered our existence." "What lesson?" "Never let your enemies know your true capabilities until you're ready to use them." Reldan's legs felt weak. "You've had FTL travel all along?" "Among other things. Tell me, Captain, how long do you think it would take for a message to reach your fleet from here, using your fastest communications?" 3 days using quantum relay." "Interesting. We sent word to our deep strike forces about 15 minutes after you entered our system. They should be arriving at your fleet's current position, right about now. Now. Across the depths of space, the main Syndicate fleet suddenly found themselves surrounded by human vessels that had simply materialized around them. Admiral Zekthara stared in horror as ships that defied every law of physics she knew positioned themselves with mathematical precision around her supposedly invincible armada. "This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Strategic Command," came the transmission to every Syndicate vessel simultaneously. "You have 30 seconds to lower shields and surrender, or we will demonstrate why threatening humanity was a mistake." Zekthara's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as she tried to process what was happening. "Impossible. They're primitives. Chemical rockets and metal ships." "Admiral," her tactical officer reported in a shaking voice, "I'm reading energy signatures that suggest these vessels could crack planets. Their shields are operating on principles our science doesn't recognize. And, ma'am, there are thousands of them." Back on Earth, Captain Reldan watched helplessly as his ship was drawn into a vast docking facility that hadn't been there moments before. The structure assembled itself around them using technology that seemed to manipulate matter at the molecular level. "You've been watching us," he said, understanding finally dawning. "For over a century," Admiral Morrison confirmed. "Ever since your first scouts entered our region of space. We've studied your methods, your technology, your psychology. We know exactly how you operate. But why hide? Why pretend to be primitive? Because, Captain, humanity has enemies. Not the pirates and raiders you mentioned, but something far worse. Forces that make your syndicate look like children playing with toys. We needed time to prepare, to build our defenses, to develop weapons that could face what's coming. Admiral Morrison's expression grew serious. What's coming? Morrison looked directly at him. That's classified. But let me ask you something, Captain. Did you really think you were the apex predators of the galaxy? That no species had ever achieved capabilities beyond your understanding? A chill ran down Reldan's spine. What are you saying? I'm saying your syndicate has been very lucky that humanity chose to remain hidden. Because if we hadn't been here, watching and waiting, your first contact with a truly advanced civilization would have been your last. Throughout the solar system, syndicate vessels found themselves completely outmatched. Human ships moved through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. Weapons that could shatter asteroids fired warning shots that somehow avoided damaging anything while demonstrating their overwhelming power. The message was clear. Humanity had been holding back, and what they were revealing now was just the beginning. Admiral Zekthara, her pride as shattered as her assumptions, activated her surrender beacon. Around her, the rest of the syndicate fleet followed suit. They had come expecting to intimidate a primitive species and instead found themselves at the mercy of beings whose technology bordered on the incomprehensible. Admiral Morrison, Captain Reldan said quietly, "What happens to us now?" The human admiral studied him for a long moment. "That depends, Captain. Are you willing to learn what real galactic politics looks like? Because your syndicate is about to discover that the galaxy is much more dangerous than you ever imagined." Outside the massive docking facility, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel surrounded by the impossible architecture of true spacefaring civilization. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient sensors detected the energy signatures of the confrontation and began transmitting warnings to powers that had slumbered for millennia. The game was about to change, and humanity had just announced they were ready to play. 2 weeks after the surrender, Ambassador Zekthara found herself in circumstances she'd never imagined. Instead of dictating terms from a position of strength, she sat in what humans called the diplomatic quarter of their Luna station. A facility that put the syndicate's most advanced installations to shame. The meeting room's walls displayed a real-time view of the galaxy, but not as she'd ever seen it before. Human sensors revealed details that made their intelligence networks look primitive by comparison. Trade routes she'd thought were secret, hidden bases, fleet movements, even private communications between syndicate board members, scrolled past in an overwhelming display of surveillance capability. "Your intelligence network is impressive," she admitted to Director Sarah Chen, who sat across from her with unsettling calm. "Dr. Chen," the human corrected gently. "And thank you. We've had some time to perfect it." Through the transparent aluminum windows, Zekthara could see human ships moving through space with casual ease, vessels that seemed to fold space around themselves, making journeys that should take days happen in moments. Construction platforms assembled new installations using matter manipulation that her species' greatest scientists claimed was theoretically impossible. "How long?" she asked. "How long have you been capable of this, Doctor?" Chen activated a holographic display. "Our first faster-than-light vessel launched in 2157. That was 68 years ago. We've been observing galactic civilization ever since." "Impossible. We would have detected your expansion. Would you?" Dr. Chen touched the display, zooming in on various star systems. "Here's our research station in the Vega system, established 40 years ago. Here's our monitoring post in Centauri, 55 years old. This facility in the Tau Ceti system has been operational for 37 years. Each location she highlighted showed sophisticated installations that the syndicate's sensors had somehow missed entirely. Dozens of systems, hundreds of facilities, all invisible to their detection networks. "Stealth technology," Zekthara whispered. "Among other things. We learned early that the galaxy was full of predators like your syndicate. Species that viewed emerging civilizations as resources to be exploited. So we chose to remain hidden while we developed defensive capabilities. Director Hayes, an elderly human with sharp eyes, leaned forward. The question sent ice through Zekthora's circulatory system. That name is forbidden in Syndicate space. I thought so. And the Devourers? The Silent Expansion? Each name made Zekthora's chitin plates rattle with involuntary fear. How do you know those names? No species speaks of them. It's too dangerous. Dr. Chen and Director Hayes exchanged looks that spoke of shared knowledge and grim purpose. Because, Ambassador, we know what really rules the galaxy. And we know what's been hunting the advanced civilizations that dared to develop beyond certain thresholds. Hayes activated another display, showing star charts marked with ominous symbols. 700 years ago, the Zenith Collective controlled 40,000 star systems. Their technology made your syndicate look medieval. They vanished overnight. All traces of their civilization erased, as if they'd never existed. 9. The Harmony Network, 500 years ago. Masters of quantum consciousness and dimensional engineering. Gone without a trace. The Crystal Dynasties, 3 centuries past. They could craft matter from pure energy and reshape reality itself. Eliminated so thoroughly that only archaeological fragments prove they ever lived. Zekthora's breathing became rapid and shallow. These were the nightmares that haunted every advanced species, the cautionary tales that kept civilizations from advancing too quickly. You know what happened to them, she said. It wasn't a question. We know what's still out there, Doctor, Chen replied. The things that cull any species that grows too powerful, too advanced, too threatening to the cosmic order they've established. Director Hayes stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the human fleet. Your syndicate has been very careful not to advance beyond certain limits. Your technology is impressive, but deliberately constrained. You maintain the illusion of being the galaxy's dominant power, while ensuring you never become strong enough to attract attention. It's survival, Zekthara protested. Every species that pushed too far beyond the boundaries was eliminated. We learned to be content with managing lesser civilizations, rather than transcending to become targets ourselves. Yes, Dr. Chen agreed. And that's exactly the mindset that's kept the galaxy in a state of controlled stagnation for millennia. Civilizations rise to a certain level, then deliberately limit themselves out of fear. But you didn't, Zekthara realized. You've crossed those boundaries. You've developed the technologies that draw their attention. Dr. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Oh, we've done much more than that, Ambassador. We've been preparing for war. The displays around the room shifted, showing images that made Zekthara's worst nightmares seem pleasant. Massive shipyards, hidden in the spaces between dimensions. Weapons that could unravel the fundamental forces of reality. Defensive networks spanning entire galactic regions. The architects left markers, Director Hayes explained. Warnings scattered across dead worlds, hidden in quantum fluctuations, embedded in the cosmic background radiation itself. We found them. We decoded them. And we learned what's really coming. Coming? The final harvest, Dr. Chen said simply. The entities that have been culling advanced species for millions of years are preparing for something bigger. A galactic-wide elimination event that will reset civilization to its most primitive state. Zekthara felt her world collapsing around her understanding. When? Our projections suggest within the next 50 years, maybe less, depending on how many species achieve technological transcendence. But why are you telling me this? Why reveal yourselves now? Director Hayes returned to his seat, his expression grave. Because humanity has decided we're not going to hide anymore. We've spent 68 years preparing, building, and planning. We're ready to make our stand. But more importantly, Dr. Chen added, we're not going to face this alone. The galaxy needs to wake up. Species need to stop limiting themselves out of fear and start preparing for what's really coming. A new hologram appeared, showing star systems throughout the galaxy. We're offering a choice to every advanced civilization. Join us in preparing for the real enemy, or continue playing your small games while the universe burns around you. Zekthara looked at the display, seeing her own species' territory marked alongside hundreds of others. And, if we refuse, then you'll face what's coming with the same limited capabilities you have now. And when the final harvest begins, you'll discover that your careful moderation was just another form of suicide. Director Hayes leaned forward. But if you join us, if you're willing to transcend the artificial limits that have kept you safe but weak, then you'll help us build something the galaxy has never seen before. What? A united defense that can actually fight back. Species working together, instead of preying on each other. Technology. Development. Unrestricted by fear. A civilization that can look the harvesters in the eye and tell them to go to hell. Dr. Chen activated one final display, showing the full scope of humanity's hidden empire. Thousands of star systems, millions of ships, weapons and defenses that span dimensions. This is what we've built in secret. This is what we're offering to share. Zekthara stared at the impossible scope of human achievement. In less than a century, they had surpassed every known civilization, while remaining completely hidden. They had prepared for threats that others dared not even acknowledge. Your syndicate came here expecting to exploit a primitive species, Director Hayes said. Instead, you've discovered that the primitives were never primitive at all. We were just waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves. And that moment is now? The markers are changing, Dr. Chen explained. The warnings left by extinct civilizations are shifting, indicating that the harvest cycle is beginning to accelerate. We estimate that within a decade, every species in the galaxy will face the same choice: transcend or be eliminated. Zekthara's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. What exactly are you proposing? Full technological exchange, joint military development, shared intelligence networks, an end to the petty territorial disputes that keep civilizations weak, and most importantly, the courage to develop capabilities that have been forbidden for millennia. You're asking us to make ourselves targets. We're asking you to make yourselves strong enough that being targets doesn't matter, Director Hayes corrected. Because, whether you hide or reveal yourselves, the harvesters are coming. The only question is whether you'll face them as a victim or as a threat. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of systems that operated on principles the syndicate's scientists didn't understand. Outside the windows, human vessels continued their impossible dance through space. A demonstration of what became possible when a species chose courage over caution. I'll need to consult with the syndicate leadership, Zekthara said finally. Of course. But don't take too long, Ambassador. The galaxy is about to become a very dangerous place, and the only safety lies in strength. As Zekthara was escorted back to her quarters, she realized that everything she thought she knew about galactic politics had been wrong. Humanity hadn't been a primitive species ripe for exploitation. They had been a sleeping giant, waiting for the right moment to wake up and change the rules of existence itself. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy would be wise enough to join them before it was too late. In the depths of space, ancient monitoring systems detected the energy signatures of human technology finally operating without concealment. Across the galaxy, dormant protocols activated, and entities older than stars began to stir. The harvest was beginning ahead of schedule, but for the first time in millions of years, they would face prey that was ready to fight back.